Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman Board of Governor, ISSI. Dr. Zafar Iqbal Chima, President SVI. Lieutenant General Asif Yassin Malik, former Secretary of Defense. Ambassador Aziz Ahmad Khan, former High Commissioner to India. Fellow colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Title of today's webinar is quite pertinent in view of the prevailing tendencies of extremism in the world in general and particularly in India. The world is witnessing an unprecedented surge of far-right extremism. Movements like white supremacists, anti-migration, and Islamophobia are prevalent from Europe to Asia. In 2014, with the rise of Bharatiya Janata Party under the leadership of Narendra Modi, India too fell to populism. Since then, South Asian region is witness to growing Indian belligerence towards its own people as well as the regional state. BJP is a political wing of RSS. The RSS is a staunch follower of Hindutva ideology that embraces only those religious communities whose origins could be traced to the Indian soil. Hence, it is no surprise the Muslims and the Christians have been suffering at the hands of Hindu extremists since 2014. On the internal front, inspired by the Hindutva ideology, RSS manifestation could be witnessed as India is increasingly becoming intolerant toward its own minorities, be it Sikhs, Dalits, Christians, or above all Muslims. Space for freedom of religion and speech is rapidly shrinking, setting the ground for ethnic riots. Mob lynchings have become the norm. In fact, like Citizenship Amendment Act and National Register of Citizens are all worrisome acts for the civilized world today. On the international stage, India's image has also seen a sharp decline over the years. India has spent billions of dollars to build its soft power as the largest democracy in the world. This soft power is rapidly diminishing in the wake of recent human rights violations, particularly Indian uh, illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, with this backdrop, India Studies Center today have organized today's important webinar uh, for, for better understanding of the issue. We are grateful to our guest speaker for this. With this precise backdrop, may I request Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry for his welcome remarks. Prior to I invite Ambassador Chaudhry, let me briefly introduce him. Ambassador Chaudhry has served as a member of Foreign Service of Pakistan for 37 years, rising to the rank of Foreign Secretary of Pakistan for over 30 years. Ambassador Chaudhry's last diplomatic assignment was Ambassador of Pakistan to United States of America. At the moment, after retirement, he is doing at Director General Institute of Strategic Studies since June 2018. Sir, floor is with you.
Thank you. Thank you. May I warmly welcome you all, especially Dr. Zafar Iqbal, who is the president of Strategic Vision Institute and very active one. We keep receiving his inputs and his contributions for the good of our country. And Lieutenant General retired Asif Yassin Malik, former Secretary of Defense, who has practically seen the impact of the activities that India has been conducting in Pakistan covertly. And Ambassador Aziz Ahmed Khan, our former High Commissioner to India, as well as to Kabul and other places. And we are very, very pleased that this worthy panel will be discussing a subject which is one of a series of subjects that we intend to take in the next few years. I just want to indicate to you that there are two areas on which India Study Center will be focusing a lot. One is the question of Indian terrorism in Pakistan. You would recall that on 14th November, the foreign minister of Pakistan and DGISPR presented a dossier, a part of the details on the media, but a big dossier was sent to the United Nations as well as shared with other countries also, indicating uh, very, very clearly how India was promoting terrorism inside Pakistan by instigating a number of terrorist activities. And that is one area on which we are very concerned. Naturally, Pakistan is concerned that India has used terrorism as an instrument of its policy. The second area is the disinformation campaign that India has been carrying out for years, perhaps decades, as was manifested by the Indian Chronicles. And that was not Pakistan's publication, it was EU's NGO, Disinfo Lab, which brought to light after considerable effort and work that how for 15 years in so many countries, Indian agents were spreading disinformation about Pakistan. I think these are the two areas on which we need to expose the real face of India to the world, as well as to our own people, so that we can hope hope that India would desist from such activities in future. And with that, I very warmly welcome you all, as well as those who have signed in to this webinar. Back to you, Dr. Malik.
Thank you, sir. I invite Ms. Mavi Shafid, Research Fellow at India Studies Center, India Institute, for a very short presentation on today's topic.
Thank you very much. I'll be giving a short overview of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. So during early 20th century, the Indian subcontinent under the British rule was witness to a number of movements by different communities to protect their religious and cultural identities from getting polluted by other religions or by Western cultural influences. The emergence of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in 1925 at Nagpur by Keshav Paliram Hedgewar was also in this backdrop, as RSS proclaimed aim was to free Hindustan and save Hindu culture. Additionally, it also sought cultural and spiritual renaissance of the Hindu as a nation. Next slide, please. RSS seeks to bring Hindus under nationalistic lines. For this purpose, the RSS relies upon Hindutva ideology that was first floated by V.D. Savarkar, who believed that to be an Indian, one had to believe that India was both his holy land and fatherland. By this definition, followers of religions like Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism were Indian. However, Muslims and Christians were outsiders, as these religions had their birthplace and holy lands somewhere else. Savarkar has hence insisted that the outsiders must adhere to Hindu symbols that represent India's national culture if they wish to live in India. Next slide, please. Hence, Hindutva emerged as an exclusivist racial concept that embraced only those religious communities whose origins could be traced to the Indian soil. Apart from the Hindutva ideology, Madhav Kolwalkar, who drafted the RSS constitution, also took inspiration from Mussolini and Nazism, especially Hitler's treatment of religious minorities. Next slide, please. So, this is a quote from Golwalkar. I'm not going to read it out, but you can see that how he praises Germany's treatment of the Jews. So, next slide, please. Thus, it is no surprise that it was a member of RSS who assassinated Mohanlal Gandhi in 1948 for being too soft on Muslims. The incident forced the then Prime Minister Nehru to ban the organization in February 1948, which ultimately was lifted after almost 15 months. During the initial years of independence, the RSS maintained a low political profile. It slowly started gaining strength and ultimately became a significant power in India. RSS was again banned during Indira Gandhi's emergency period and finally following the demolition of Babri Mosque in 1992. Next slide, please. Okay. So it is also pertinent to mention here that in order to increase its political influence to further its agenda, the RSS first formed the Bharatiya Jana Sangh and later the Bharatiya Janata Party. Today, RSS has 6,000 pracharaks, 15 to 20 lakh participants in 57,000 daily, 14,000 weekly, and 7,000 monthly shakhas. It has 37 affiliates and 60 lakh alumni, as well as affiliate volunteers and 1.65 lakh projects. It is a well-known fact that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a trained pracharak of RSS and an ardent supporter of Hindutva ideology. It therefore is no surprise that since 2014, with the rise of Bharatiya Janata Party under the leadership of Modi, India has fast drifted towards Nazi-inspired Hindu nationalism or Hindutva ideology. In fact, this ideology of Hindutva has totally captured the Indian society. Mob lynchings have become a norm, whereas the National Register of Citizens, Citizenship Amendment Act, revocation of Article 370 and 35A are all manifestations of Hindutva ideology as they are meant to isolate the Muslims. The RSS agenda have very serious consequences for the region as well, as is evident by the fact that India is increasingly antagonizing its neighbors, and SARC has been left almost defunct due to Indian bigotry. So,
Meritorious professor and chairman department of defense and strategic studies, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. He also served as professor head of department in the department of strategic studies and nuclear studies, faculty of contemporary studies at National Defense University, Islamabad. He was previously professor and chairman of DSS. Dr. Chima is currently working as president Strategic Vision Institute, Islamabad. Dr. Chima, sir, the floor is with you.
Okay. Thank you very much for a very generous introduction. I think it's very commendable that the Institute of Strategic Studies have held a very important seminar on RSS as a move towards of fascism in South Asia. I'm also thankful to Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry and Chairman of the Institute of Strategic Studies for providing this opportunity to me to speak on this very important subject. I think to begin with, this is a very conservative assessment to say that RSS is a move towards fascism in South Asia. RSS is already there in India. It has occupied India, though through electoral politics, and the threat is right in South Asia, which we have to take it very significantly and very seriously. RSS is now almost 100 years old, as has been described in the presentation made by the Honorable Lady. And this is significant. The nature of the threat is significant and very serious to the South Asian country, because India is the largest country in South Asia, and not only largest in demographic terms, but largest in military terms, economic terms, and possibly maybe from many other dimensions. So we have to take it from that perspective. I think I would take three main things on the RSS as an ideology, RSS tactics and methodology that they use, and what is the nature of the RSS being in power in India today. RSS believes in a primordial ideology. It's primordial nationalism on which it is based. That it takes into those prehistoric considerations into account, like race, like language, like blood, and like caste system, which is taken into account. All of these are basic human characteristics which have been the human history has passed so long time that you don't need to have about those basic. For example, to believe in a caste system, superiority of the caste system is one of the basics of human thinking, and one should avoid being thinking under those kind of terms. Secondly, they think they, either despite being what they are, Hindus believe that Hindus are the sole custodians of the Indian culture and Indian history and Indian politics, despite the fact that India is a very distinct identity which has been very different from Hinduism. If we remember Jawaharlal Nehru having said at one time that Hindus are not the only race are the only entity in India, but Muslim, Jain, Buddhists are equally as much Indians as other Hindus are. So Hindus are Hindus, they are not Indians. And they are a threat to Indian democracy, they are a threat to uh, they are threat to secularism, and they threat to basically the way of life it is in India. So India, which has, as we know, for the last 100 years or maybe 200 years, including the British Raj, has been an India, not a Hindutva nationalism, whereas the ideology of the RSS is based on Hindutva nationalism, which I already said is basically primordial in character. And this is, as has been explained by the lady during the presentation, that it is exclusionary in nature. It excludes other kind of cultures, other kind of sectors, other kinds of human beings, and think they are the only one who have the right to rule India and right to rule India the way they like, not just to rule India, but the way they rule India itself, exclusionary from that point of view. And they like to exclude. I think especially their target is Muslims. Muslims are special target of the RSS, and from that point of view, they are they think Muslims are outsiders, and being outsiders, they have no right to be in the Indian politics, to be in India, and they are a threat to the Indian existence, and they're threat to, sorry, not the Indian, but the Hindutva existence, and therefore to be taken from that of view. One needs to be kept into mind, I think it's a well-known fact about the RS that it's inspired by Nazi and Italian fascism. One of the worst fascism which have taken place in the human history, which resulted in the World War II, and the devastation it has caused in the world is unimaginable. Even despite the fact that the history has no witness to that kind of a devastation which has taken place. But this is beyond, since the history of the mankind, this is the worst ever devastation which has taken place. And that an organization like RSS, which is inspired by that Nazi Nazism and that is inspired by Italian fascism, I think is one of the very seriously to be taken threat to South Asia. I think it's a threat not only to South Asia, is my opinion, RSS is a threat to the region and a threat to the whole world, basically speaking. And their tactics and their methodology is fascist in nature. They do not believe in democratization. They do not believe in the rights of other Muslim, the other entities in India, and the other nations which exist in the world. They think they are exclusively a nation which is to be kept into the mainstream of the Indian politics, and they want to dominate. Their definition of India is also very threatening to other nations of the South Asia, for example. The current borders of India is not what they aim at. Their definition of India goes back to years BC. Ashoka the Great, the empire, man, what it was. They think that are the frontiers of the India which they have into mind, and the Hindutva that they have in the mind. Therefore, this is a threat to small nations of South Asia, but is also threat to other main nations of the South Asian region, larger South Asian region, and the rest of the world as well, from that to be taken into account. I think we have seen the manifestation of politics in India today speaks about the nature of the threat that South Asia is now facing. Modi's government, the Modi's tactics that Modi has used to come into power, and the way he has ruled India, and the way they have treated Muslims and other minorities in India, I think speaks very volumes about the nature of the threat the RSS is going to be to South Asia. So I would say this is to be taken as a very serious consideration. And I'm glad that the ISSI has arranged this particular seminar on a very highly important subject. So the nature of the threat is far greater than it has been visualized previously, and we need to take that into account. So my second point I wanted to make it that the ideology and the methodology that they have into mind is to exclude other people from government, to exclude other people from the Indianness, to exclude other people from the region, and to give not to accept their fundamental rights. That's one of the main methodology that the RS has is into mind. They exclusively want to establish their own dictatorship, authoritarianism, initially in India, eventually in South Asia, and maybe eventually beyond the borders of South Asia. I think that's an important thing. That's what I have to say on the moment, and I will join during the question answer session to say what more prompts up at this stage. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Zafar Chima. You very rightly quoted Jawaharlal Nehru that Hindus are not only race in India, but today's Modi's India is otherwise different from the views of the Modi, even the views of the Gandhi. Thank you for enlightening talk. Now, our next speaker is renowned veteran General Asif Yasin Malik. Lieutenant General retired Asif Yasin Malik, Hilal-e-Imtiyaz military, is a graduate of Pakistan Army Command and Staff College and National Defense University, Islamabad. Also holds a master's degree in strategic resource management from National Defense University, Washington, D.C. While at NDU, Washington, D.C., he was the class president of the International Fellows. He was bestowed the privilege of gracing the NDU's Alumni Hall of Fame in 2013, the first Pakistani to have this honor. The general is a former Secretary Defense, served in Inter-Services Intelligence as Director General Counterintelligence, commanded 11 Corps and led major counter-terrorism campaign in northwest Pakistan. He is also member of Advisory Board of India Studies Center. Sir, you are welcome to share your thoughts.
ISSI for inviting me to such an important activity. And I also congratulate the institution and Ambassador Azaz for taking up this topic, which is, I think, it is least understood by people, although talked about a lot. My first issue is a rather important one, that India, which actually was Hindustan, has to be understood in a different way, that probably this is the only country in the world whose name is based on a religion. Even Israel or Vatican or even Pakistan is not Islamistan or something. It is Pakistan, Pak Watan or something like that. So therefore, the very genesis of Hindustan is based on religion. So therefore, obviously, there is no space for other religions in it. And India was, in fact, coined by the British once they took it over. And it was never a country by then. It was a group of 500 or something like states, small and big, which was, my view is, it was a union, which is now called as States Union, but it was a union of small, kingdoms and royalties. So therefore, the name itself is very clear about the nature of this country, the DNA of this country. Whatsoever Gandhi or Nehru or whosoever has been saying, in my opinion, it was all hypocrisy. The blood in the Hindustan is of the Hindu. And why they have an issue with the Muslim, I think Dr. Saab also referred to it. They have that issue because of the 700-year rule of the Muslims over India. So that is their issue, and they openly say that we are going to avenge that period of 700 years by eliminating the Muslims. The theory that they are now preaching is that all the Muslims in India are convertees. So I am forgetting the niche that they are projecting. but something like come back to your original religion, that is to say the Muslims should convert to Hinduism. So that has to be understood. And if I was a policymaker, I would call India, not call India, I will call it Hindustan. That will, put the things in the clearer perspective. Before we talk of BJP, I think the term fascism has to be understood very clearly. And once we understand fascism, we will be able to relate what is happening in India and understand it in the correct perspective. The term fascism is derived from a Latin word fascis, which referred to a bundle of elm or birch of rods, usually containing an axe, used as a symbol of penal authority in ancient Rome. When they had to behead somebody, the axe was used, and this is the symbol of, fasc, love. The word is a symbol of that. A belief in natural social hierarchy and rule of elites, and the desire to create a Volksgemeinschaft, the German people's community, in which individual interests would be subordinate to the good of the nation. Fascism is a form of government that is a type of one-party dictatorship. Fascists are against democracy. They work for a totalitarian one-party state, and the aim is to prepare the nation for armed conflict and respond to economic difficulties. Fascism puts nations and often races above the individual. It stands for a centralized government headed by a dictator. Historically, fascist governments tend to be militaristic and racist. In the Third Reich, the National Socialist Party, the German society, was pictured as a racially unified hierarchy. Fascism appeared in Europe and Italy in early 20s and developed fully in 30s. Its supporters thought that democracy was weak and full of moral perversions that multiply capitalism and was too materialistic and unfair to the people. The fascist party in Italy was ruled by a Grand Council from 1922 until the end of World War II. However, in practice, it became ruled by the first fascist leaders, Benito Mussolini. Hitler in Germany and Franco in Spain and Salazar in Portugal took control in 1930s in their countries, and after World War II, fascists continued to form military dictatorships in Portugal, Spain, and some parts of Latin America, Africa, and Asia. There has been considerable disagreement about the nature of fascism. Some scholars, for example, regard it as a socially radical movement with ideological ties to Jacobins of the French Revolution, whereas others see it as an extreme form of conservatism inspired by 19th century backlash against the ideals of enlightenment. Some find fascism deeply irrational, and others attempt to explain fascist demonologies as the expression of irrationally misdirected anger and frustration, whereas others emphasize the rational ways in which these demonologies were used to perpetuate professional or class advantages. Finally, whereas some consider fascism to be motivated primarily by its aspirations, by a desire for cultural regeneration and creation of a new man, others place greater weight on fascism's anxieties and fear of communist revolution or of even left-centrist electoral victories. Although Hitler had not revealed the full extent of his totalitarian aims before he came to power as Führer of the Third Reich, he attempted not only to control all political power, but also dominate many institutions and organizations that were previously independent of the state, such as courts, churches, universities, social clubs, veteran groups, sports associations, and even youth organizations. Even the German family came under assault as a member of Hitler's youth were told that it was their patriotic duty to inform on anti-Nazi parents. Mussolini in Italy adopted the title of douche, that is, the leader in his regime created billboards displaying slogans, douche is always right. believe, obey, and fight. So this was all about fascism. And if we now relate it to India, we will find that all the symptoms that I have elucidated above are visible in India. They are going to a one-party state. The personal freedom is not at threat. I think it has already been confiscated by the state. The families and people are reporting each other against each other, which is very common. Even within the Hindus, the lower castes are, feeling sort of suffocated. So Muslims are outside Hinduism, but within Hinduism also, the concept of superior race or superior sect ruling is prevailing in India. And as back as Indira Gandhi, if we know, and Aziz Saab would know better, it was commonly believed that Indira Gandhi used to take a bath if there was a shadow of a Muslim on her during some meeting or something, and she would not consume food even before taking a bath. So those were the liberal sort of people, Nehru family and all that. So what to say of BJP? I think the lady has explained the establishment of BJP. I'll not dwell on it. And I will come to the, the issue of future of BJP. All radical concepts and thoughts have a limited shelf life and do not develop into a sustainable practical system which can be implemented to the benefit of the many. History is witness to this fact, whether it is Italy, Germany, China, or USSR, in fact, transforms into a counter movement. Politically, BJP's hardline policies will unite opposing forces and create political forces space for them to contest elections and win better numbers. And it is likely to see that in the 2023 elections may see a major change in the Indian politics. In my view, BJP RSS Modi movement has already laid the foundations for disintegration of the Indian Union. More so, the secular facade of India projected around the world since Gandhi and Nehru has been comprehensively punctured in spite of global community choosing to look the other way for its commercial interests. This biased attitude of the world does not mean that the effects of BJP fascism will remain in check and non-Hindus of India will not continue to suffer. Ladies and gentlemen, briefly implications for Pakistan. India being the largest population and landmass in South Asia has great influence on the events in Asia and a global approach towards the region. As said earlier, India itself has undergone a major strategic realignment from an established Eastern Bloc nation to a complete US strategic partner and a perceived bulwark against China. As a consequence, it has wrongly started to feel and behave like a regional bully, which is the fascism's mainstay, to be the bully in the area. It has tried to behave like a global power while it does not have the credentials of even a local force. In this pursuit, it has gone on a weaponization spree and to face the abysmal indicators, irrespective of the facade of abysmal indicators of its economy. It's this misplaced superstatus consciousness that has introduced or induced it to take hostile actions against all its neighbors and the resultant cold response from their side. The latest example being the Sino-Indian clash, in which the Chinese gave a thrashing to the Indian forces. This thrashing was in fact a message to the Indians' new sponsors, the United States and the West, rather than a response to the Indian misplaced military posturing. As far as 2021, the new year is concerned, India will amass a large arsenal and reorientate its defense and strategic design from the West only to India is in an unprecedented state of regional isolation, as all its neighbors have frictional relations with it. Indian economy will further deteriorate and internal unrest will accentuate, bringing it nearer to Fissiparis outcome. India is likely to exploit the new US-Arab-Israel nexus and likely kinetic action against Iran and attempt to sort some sort of punitive military action against Pakistan like surgical strike to avenge its blackened face after shooting down of 2 fighter aircraft and taking prisoner of a pilot by Pakistan. As far as Pakistan is concerned, India will enhance many-fold its efforts to cause internal chaos, instability, and economic setback, along with divisive tendencies in the society. Finally, Pakistan has to keep a keen eye on the internal stability caused by BJP-led government and exploit various emerging fault lines in Indian Union. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, General. Very interesting, enlightening talk and food for thought, especially new US Arab Israel nexus and its implications even for this region and beyond. And especially you correct the perspective of the Hindustan and the perspective about the fascism with reference to Hindustan. Our last speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Ambassador Aziz Ahmad Khan. Ambassador Aziz Ahmad Khan is a seasoned diplomat. He travels extensively at international level to lecture at strategic security conferences with particular reference to Pakistan's foreign policy challenges. He has served as Pakistan's High Commissioner to New Delhi from June 2003 to 2006, and he has served as the additional Foreign Secretary from 2000 to 2002. Sir, floor is with you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very grateful that I have been included in this erudite discussion on a subject which is very important for the country and, in fact, for the entire neighborhood, if not the world. I would commend the Director General of the Institute of Strategic Studies and the Chairman of the Institute of Strategic Studies for all playing a very active role in discussing topics of national importance, topics which have a bearing on our security, on our foreign policy. And this particular subject that has been chosen today is something that has a very strong bearing on Pakistan. The two distinguished speakers before me have very eruditely explained the Hindutva, the issue of fascism, that Hindutva is associated with that, and the background of the RSS. So I will not repeat all that, and I would go directly to the point that the RSS is now established in India. If you go back to the trajectory of RSS, as have already been explained, the ideology was there, their preparation was there, they are a very organized group. We have been given the history of RSS, how they are organized into branches, how they are the drills that they do, and they are in fact present at even down to the village level. And with this, at the present moment, their control seems to be complete. Now, RSS influence had started in India earlier on, after all, in the form of Jansangh. And we must remember that it was a Jansanghi who was responsible for the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi when he was talking about the Muslim rights and so on, particularly because they got annoyed that why was he promoting the rights of the Muslims, although Mahatma was also not that enamored of the Muslims, but he certainly wanted to keep a facade of the non-communal nature of the Indian government. This gained influence, continued to gain, and when BJP formed its government under Vajpayee, the RSS control in the government was quite obvious. The only thing was that Mr. Vajpayee, being a very scholarly person and a very seasoned politician, he projected a soft image of Hindutva, but the Hindutva brigade was very busy establishing itself. But the image that he kept was softer, and very wisely, he also thought that neighbors should be kept, good relations with neighbors should be established. With the coming in of Narendra Modi, the whole facade of that soft image is gone. Now RSS is in power with its complete fascist image that General Saab very aptly and in detail described. One could have known, one knew that once Narendra Modi came at the national level, what would become of India, because don't forget that his period of chief minister of Gujarat, the massacre of Muslims that took place at that time, and till today, he has not even expressed regret about that massacre. Despite, and if you recall, there was in fact once an interview that he was giving to Karan Thapar, and when he asked him pointedly this particular question, he got up and left the interview and did not even say that he was sorry that it happened, although he was the chief minister of the state, and every individual living in that state was his responsibility. Today, the lines have been drawn very clearly. India is now a fascist state. The Hindutva ideology is the supreme ideology, and there doesn't seem to be any likelihood of that diminishing or tempering down in the near future in any case. He is not even ashamed of it, of admitting that. The strong-arm right-wing policies, particularly since the models are existing elsewhere in the world. There are leadership coming in several countries, including the United States. Trump had the same tendency, and that is why the two got along very well together. The Hungary is the same. Brazil is the same. It's unfortunate for humanity that these fascistic tendencies and these extreme right-wing macho tendencies are in the government are gaining ground, and hopefully in time, I hope that these tendencies are brought down. Now, coming specifically to India, and it's within India, I think all that has happened, and it's been reported very in great detail and over this period of time since 2014, when this BJP government came into power, and now particularly after the last elections, when they gained overwhelming majority in parliament, they are now going berserk, implementing their ideology. And unfortunately, in the form of Amit Shah, they have an executioner of those policies. And he probably would be, although it is not possible to imagine an ugly face of Hindutva uglier than Narendra Modi's, but I think Amit Shah would be a step ahead of him in case he comes to power. Unless the government in India, a BJP government, falls. But the likelihood of that is not apparent. I personally feel that this setup is going to carry on for a long time. Congress party, which again was a softer image of Hindutva and not really that crude fascistic tendencies that are existing today. But Congress party now has become a minor party, and it is not likely that it will gain ground in the near future. Perhaps in certain areas, the regional parties will dominate, but they are going to be more influential in their own states rather than at the national level, unless there is a grand coalition. But even there, the local governments, these regional parties, the chances of their coalescing together, coming together, uniting together to form a national government, at least at the moment, doesn't seem likely. Although in politics, one can never say when things will change. I mean, when nobody can predict politics correctly, but whatever one can see at the moment, I think this BJP government and these policies are going to stay for some time. And the policies that they have adopted of repression, of the tough line they have taken about the Muslims, this will continue. This finds resonance in, and this finds it, what is most tragic is that there is, in India, there is by and large a popular support for such policies. The secular India is gone, and a few individuals who genuinely feel that there should be secularism as described in the constitution, and good relations with the neighbors and all around, are now very, very few, and it's a diminishing minority. So it will, the policies that are being pursued in India will continue to be pursued as far as the Muslims are concerned, as far as the other minorities are concerned, and particularly the Muslims. We should be under no illusion about that. As far as the regional policies is concerned, again, the high-handedness that India has adopted, the sudden idea that they have started thinking that they are a major power, they have started throwing their weight around. A country like Nepal, for example, where India has extremely good relations, there was under the treaty, a lot of concessions were going to Nepal. Look what happened when there was a minor little dispute about the delimitation of border in one narrow part of Nepal, where they claimed the territory. India came down with a very heavy hand. Bhutan, in any case, is not posing any worries to India. With Bangladesh, where the relations had been very good, even their tensions have started. Although with the present Awami League government in power, I don't think that India-Bangladesh relations would have any would deteriorate. But nonetheless, tensions have started. The same is with Sri Lanka. Maldives cannot, it's a small country, it cannot do so. It will, for its own reasons, it will continue to accept the dominance of India in their region. The real problem for India in the region is Pakistan. And they are dead set in what I would say that to put Pakistan in its place. We have seen how things have followed. We have seen how we have tried to interact with the BJP government. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif attended the inauguration ceremony of Modi, but the relations continue to deteriorate despite that. Even today, the government's continuous offer of having good normal relations and normalized relations, resolving issues, there has not been a single positive response from India, not even the slightest. The actions that they have taken in Kashmir are all there for us to see. The 5th August action. And now India is bent on changing the demography of Kashmir through the domicile law. They are going to do the influx of a lot more Hindus there. Also, after having declared Jammu and Kashmir as a union territory and Ladakh as a separate union territory, now they are planning to hold an election in Jammu and Kashmir, but after the delimitation of constituencies. And in that, they are going to increase 7 more seats for the assembly in Jammu, which is a Hindu-dominated area. So that ultimately a Hindu-dominated government will be formed in Kashmir. Today, inside Indian-occupied Kashmir, all senior officials, whether it is the chief secretary, whether it's the governor, it's the chief secretary, the IG, the DIGs, even superintendents of police, mostly deputy commissioners, they're all Hindus. And this is, and they are going to increase that influence, and will continue to take a tough line. And an excuse there would be that we are taking this action because of Pakistan's infiltration of terrorists from Pakistan. And this, unfortunately, is a narrative which the world has bought, and is a challenge for Pakistan to fight that. There have been some recent developments which have given us help in as far as this Infolab is concerned, and so on. But we will have to be very vigilant. As General Saab also mentioned, false flag operation. More than that, there will be, in order to boost his macho image, there will be the so-called surgical strikes. That is something, some would be imaginary, some would be real. We have seen how the violation of the LOC has increased, and this will continue. Today, there are at least 8 or 10 or 12 violations every day on the LOC, and it is all India provoked. So our armed forces will have to be extremely vigilant, and fortunately, India has also realized that we will give an equal a response in equal measure, and we have continued to do that. We should continue to be very vigilant as far as the LOC is concerned. We have seen what they were doing on the line of actual control with China, where they got trashed. They keep saying that China was provoking and China had come into the territory. The fact of the matter is that Indians were upgrading their logistics there. They were building a field. And I personally feel, and maybe I am totally wrong, but my feeling was that they were planning to do in Aksai Chin what they had done in Siachen. The only thing was that in this case, the Chinese were vigilant and they gave them a suitable reply. We have to be very vigilant. At the same time, the terrorism that is being launched by India through Afghanistan, in Balochistan, and it's a detailed documented evidence. We have to continue to fight that and to continue to tell the world what India is up to. This would not be an easy task, because unfortunately the world is involved in its own issues, and over and above India's size and India's economic strength. And we should not delude ourselves. India has a very good market for these Western countries, and particularly post-COVID, they would be eyeing it even more intently. Despite abject poverty in India, the fact is that there are at least 300 million people who are upper middle class with a good purchasing power. And they are the market that the world looks at, and they will continue to look at. The closer relations with Israel that India has developed, again, and unfortunately now with the changing scenario in the neighborhood, the recognition of Israel and so on, that would embolden India even more. So for Pakistan, we need to be very vigilant. We need to see how terrorism can be fought. Our task diplomatically, as far as convincing the world about Indian designs is concerned, would not be easy, for the reasons that I explained. I mean, despite bad relations with China, India-China bilateral trade is almost going to reach $100 billion. So it's a large economy, and there we will have to be really trying very hard. So in conclusion, I would say we need to be vigilant as far as our borders are concerned. We need to be vigilant as far as Indian-sponsored terrorism is concerned. We need to work extra hard. It will not be easy diplomatically to convince the world what India is doing. RSS domination practically is complete. India is now a Hindu Rashtra, as they call it, and it is likely to stay that way personally, I feel, for all time to come. India has shown its true colors. There was a facade of secularism during Nehru's time and so on, but it's gone now. And this is the India that we should recognize. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for very impressive, enlightening, and thought-provoking talk. And you made uh, effective reflections on the various trajectories of RSS. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we go for the question answer session. I would request Ambassador Azaz to raise a query, then followed by 3 questions for each panelist from my side.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Indeed, I endorse your assessment that the presentations were phenomenally of high quality. It got me thinking, and I begged the attention of all three worthy speakers to a question that I'm going to raise. Um, Ambassador Aziz Ahmed Khan just mentioned that India, for all practical purposes, has become a Hindu Rashtra, perhaps for all times to come. Of course, nobody knows the future, but that's his assessment. That's the direction. Asif Yassin mentioned somewhere in his talk a possible disintegration of India. Now, I want to follow up on these two thoughts. What I do see that the economy of India is going down. True, it is still remains a big market, but there are huge challenges of immense poverty, especially in the deprived classes like Dalits, Muslims, others, huge inequality, and the recent mishandling of the economy by Modi government. There is also unrest in India. This unrest is less political, as you rightly mentioned, Ambassador Aziz, that most of the political parties have really succumbed to the idea of a Hindu India. And the possibility of regional parties getting together to form one alliance is at the moment remote. But there are communal tensions, huge communal tensions running in millions of people pitched against each other. There could be ethnic tensions. And so an unrest, I do see an unrest in the future. And then the third element, so economy, unrest, internal, and then the confrontation with the neighbors is also adding to the costs and pressures on India. Now, I want to assess the implications of these trends for Pakistan. You all have mentioned that a desperate Modi could make the LOC hot, could conduct false flag operations to justify the repression of Muslims, of Kashmiris, of trouble with Pakistan, might increase surgical strikes, some phantoms like 2016, some real like 2019. Then the second, and you all said that we should be vigilant about it, which is fine. The second is Indian tendency to instigate instability and terrorism in Pakistan, either directly or through Afghanistan, even through Iran, as was seen by Kulbhushan Yadav, who was situated there. So India might, desperate India might actually increase that. And the third is, what if huge upheaval happens in India because of all these pressures? And the matter moves towards what General Asif Yassin was saying, towards disintegration. If that happens, on top of all these trends that we are picking up, there could be massive population dislocations. And some of it, there could be even a rush of refugees towards Pakistan. So the possible disintegration of India, is it really on the cards? Because if, as Ambassador Aziz says, that India has become a Hindu state for sure, then certainly it has about 500 million internal enemies, because Dalits are not treated equally, Muslims are not treated equally, and of course Christians and others. Sikhs are already under unrest. So is India really heading towards a disintegration? And if that happens, that will be a massive upheaval for which Pakistan will have to conduct much more preparations than just be vigilant on the LOC and handle the instability and terrorism that India is instigating in Pakistan. So that's the question I have. Is it headed in that direction? And what could be the time frame for a possible disintegration of India? Thank you.
Any of the panelists would like to respond to the food for thought which the ambassador Azaz has just raised?
I think basically, well, that is a threat that India might disintegrate in the future. But bigger than that threat is the India's misadventure which it can take place in South Asia, like a possibility of war with Pakistan or possibility of a war with both Pakistan and China, and something which might expand further in the region and beyond the region. Something like Hitler or something like Mussolini has done in the European hemisphere. I think there are greater chances Modi doing that kind of an adventure or a misadventure than the disintegration of India itself. Well, I'm not negating the thesis that India might disintegrate in the future to come. I do support the argument, but my prioritization is that the first thing Modi is likely to do, rather than being India disintegrated, is putting South Asia or maybe regions beyond South Asia into a great devastation of war like Mussolini and like Hitler. That's my point of view.
Thank you, Dr. Chima. The first question is addressed to others may like to comment.
No,
Anyone?
may I make a comment? Yeah, we'll
Yes,
see.
please.
Yeah, go ahead, Jalal Saab.
Question of privatization.
Hey, Jalal Saab, go ahead. Who should speak? Should I go ahead? No. Sound.
Sir, you are not audible. I'm sure you are unmute. Please, closer to the mic. Asif, you are not audible. Please unmute, please.
Let me go ahead in the meantime if till the connection is established.
Ambassador Aziz Ahmad Khan, would you like to respond?
See, I would like to make to make some comments if I may.
Please.
Yeah, as far as the question of India's disintegration is concerned, there might be unrest, there might be discontentment, but it will not lead to the disintegration of India. I think whatever I have experienced during my 2 stints in Delhi, I feel that the Indians have one thing in common, which is their Indianness. There are tremendous regional disparities of language, of ethnicities, of culture, and everything. But nonetheless, there is a certain degree of a political cohesion as far as a political entity is concerned. Number 2, as far as Dalits are concerned or lower castes are concerned, they are unhappy. They have formed their political parties and they are fighting their battle politically. Let's not forget also that Hinduism the caste system in Hinduism, which is part of their religion, helps the government or helps the dominant classes to dominate. The lower castes are considered lower than the others, less equal, and by and large, they have accepted that also psychologically. The poor are so poor that they do not have the strength to come up and take arms. It is kind of a movement, because this kind of a disintegration can only take place if there are armed movements. We have seen that there has been an insurgency going on right from Jharkhand to the, or right across India, right from Jharkhand to Andhra Pradesh and so on. But it is contained by the local police, and it is contained. It has been contained in that area. Indians are so I do not see unrest. Yes, disintegration not likely, not likely to take place. So India will continue. Yes, there might be ultimately these Yadavs and the different groups who have formed their political parties. I personally feel that there is a very likelihood that in the next elections, they might combine and make a united front to fight the BJP, and may even succeed. Even now, the tendency is going on. And as pointed out just now, as Asa pointed out, that the economic difficulties that India is facing are serious. The farms trouble that has been going on, the farmers' trouble that is going on in Punjab. Similarly, there have been other discontentments as far as the economy is concerned. The COVID action that Modi's government took by shutting down completely, and the movement of masses that took place, has caused a lot of unrest and discontent. So those factors are there. The demonetization that they had done was a total and complete failure and created a lot of difficulties. But at the same time, the Indian entrepreneurial class, and by and large, the economy is in the hands of these business people and business tycoons and so on. They are good at bouncing back, at recovering, and they are, all of them are extremely supportive of the BJP. At the same time, even media, because all the big media houses and influential media houses are owned by these corporates, and they again are completely supportive of Modi. So through propaganda, they will be able to convince the people, and using soft power internally to convince the people that the government is trying to help them, and externally they will use the soft power to blame Pakistan for interference and so on, and keep a strong arm tactics towards Pakistan. We have to be very vigilant about that, because that tactic will be used, and increasingly so. The false flag operations and so on, and blaming Pakistan. We'll have to work doubly hard about that to convince the world, and it is now having some effect that people have started taking notice that Pakistan cannot be blamed for everything, and I think that is where we have to build on and be extremely active as far as soft power is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. This first question is addressed to Ambassador Aziz Ahmed Khan. The Hindutva ideology in Indian foreign policy is prone to violence, expansionist, and is threat not only to Pakistan, but to the other regional countries. Now the question is, how do the global powers such as US and China view the Hindutva ideology?
Well, to give a very brief and a blunt answer, the global powers at the moment are too involved in their own troubles. I think US has to clear the mess that Trump has created, and Biden probably will be too busy internally, and otherwise relations with China and some other climate change and these subjects. So they wouldn't have that much time to devote to sort out or to re-educate India into becoming a civilized country. So I suspect that unfortunately this will go on, and at least for a few more years, Modi will have a free ride as far as international pressure is concerned. Just look at it. I mean, such big revelation as far as that disinfo lab thing is concerned. Hardly been any action internationally. All the repression that has been going on in Kashmir over so many, despite all the reports of Human Rights Commission and so on. There's hardly been any reaction from the international community. We have a tough task ahead of us.
Thank you. The same question with little modification from Dr. Zafar Iqbal Chima. The question is, why is the Western policy-making community complacent regarding Hinduanization of the Indian state and society?
Thank you, Brigadier Saf. I think we know that the West has a history and a tradition of pursuing their own national interest. We have seen United States of America. In fact, we have experienced with the United States of America that United States of America unilaterally pursues its own self-interest rather than accommodating the interests of its allies and the nations which are closely associated with it. We are a better example of that. Therefore, I don't think that they are concerned about Hindutva. They would rather be using Hindutva in their pursuit of the policies, and they might encourage Modi's government in terms of Asia Pacific strategy that they have it. They might use RSS and they might use as Modi's government to kind of a contest with People Republic of China, as we have seen in the recent few months that there are likely to be some contest between India and People Republic of China. And the United States may be inciting, United States and the other nation may be inciting India to go for a proxy war with the habit with People Republic of China, and a war that may expand beyond the two nations. So I think it's very clear we should not expect, we should not have any expectation from United States of America and the Western nations that they are going to curb Hindutva or RSS activities in one way or the other. They are not going to do that. They are going to rather encourage them to pursue the policies which are against the interests of the smaller South Asian nations and use them in their own advantage. So I don't think we should not think on those ways that the Americans and the Western nations are going to curtail the activities of the RSS in any way or the other.
Thank you, sir. The last question is from General Asif Yasin Malik. The question is, how the acceptance of Hindutva, specifically the social acceptance, will impact domestic terrorism landscape in India?
I think my by the control earlier also. I never said that in clarity.
Please closer to the mic, sir.
I'm sitting close. I think there is something wrong with your system, not mine. We have given the talk on the same system. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I had earlier said there is no question about doubt about the clarity vis-a-vis disintegration of India. But there are sort of seeds of disintegration. Whether it may happen or not, this is only a matter of time to prove. But we should remember that globally, whenever a disintegration of a country has taken place, the symbols which started were never recognized at that point of time, be it Bangladesh, East Pakistan, or other countries, because it takes a lot of time to disintegrate. But then, if there are corrective measures, that disintegration may not take place. But India, as Chima Sahab also brought out, and Aziz Sahab, I totally agree. In the short term, it will try to do all the things against Pakistan, because this is the only thorn in their backside vis-a-vis their policies. I would just like to add and support the argument that the world cares two hoots what is happening in India vis-a-vis its own, political, military, security, and commercial interests. So they have never cared in the past also, and particularly when it pertains to genocide of Muslims, because the world has been killing Muslims right, left, and center itself. How can America worry about the Muslims of India when it killed millions of Muslims in the Middle East during the Iraq war, Libyan invasion, and all that? So that is wrong. And we should, I think we have to fight it alone and work on our own side. And rightly brought out by Ambassador Aziz Saab, that we should be prepared to our best to meet the challenges which they are going to on the border, on the kinetic side, and plus the fifth generation warfare or four plus generation warfare in Pakistan, for which a lot of things. One thing that I would like to sort of warn everybody is the new cabinet and the dispensation being formulated by Mr. Joe Biden. I think there is a lot of Hindu content in that administration. And we are hearing even Mr. Haqqani is going to get some sort of seat in the system. So I think those are the threatening things about America that we should worry and be ready to counter rather than trying to change their policies. They don't change their policies for others' sake. Could you repeat the question that was asked now, please?
Thank you. For concluding remarks, now I invite Ambassador Khalid. The question is, okay, sir. How the acceptance of Hindutva, specifically the social acceptance, will impact domestic terrorism in India? This was the question that was addressed to General.
Yeah, I think, link it more to the Khalsa movement and Kashmir. I think primarily these are the two places which, they are the two people who are affected most by this Hindutva movement as of now, because rest of India is Hindu dominant and would sort of go with the whole thing. There are really not many states in which the scheduled castes are in majority. So the Hindu, superior castes will continue to dominate India, barring Punjab and Kashmir, where the Hindutva is not being accepted, and Sikhs have a very good presence even abroad. We have heard demonstrations in Canada, in United Kingdom, even in United States, in front of the White House by the Sikh movement. So other than that, I don't see any trouble for the domestic systems of India as far as Hindutva is concerned.
Thank you for your response, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we now heading to the concluding remarks. I will request Ambassador Khalid Mahmood. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood is the former ambassador of Pakistan to Iran, Iraq, China, Saudi Arabia, and Mongolia. He is also former permanent representative of Pakistan to the OIC and the ECO. He has also represented Pakistan at SCO meeting forum. Currently, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood is the Chairman Board of Governors and rendering his services since year 2013. Sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I want to express my pleasure at seeing old friends and greatly appreciate the very valuable input they have made to the proceedings of this webinar. Now, exclusionary ideologies based on superiority of race, culture, or religion is not an entirely new phenomenon. In recent history, as has been pointed out, this was witnessed in Nazi Germany or fascist Italy under Mussolini. And this all led to widespread, destruction of human life and property during World War II. Now, this phenomenon is again raising its head in the world. But in its most virulent form, we see it engulfing India. It has permeated, not only the state of India, but all the institutions there, be it parliament, media, defense and security establishments, all have been contaminated by this Hindutva ideology. It started as a very modest phenomenon in 1925 with about just 17 people meeting in the living room of Hyderabad. But now it has turned into a big leviathan, with a very large number of people subscribing to it, running into over 5 million Hindus. And it is affecting national policies in every field. Now, it has rightly been pointed out that RSS ideology is akin to Nazism, because this is what the founder of RSS, Hajiwar, said. He said the non-Hindu people in Hindustan must either adopt Hindu culture and language, must learn to respect and hold in reverence Hindu religion, and must entertain no ideas but those glorification of Hindu race and culture, and may stay in the country wholly subordinated to Hindu nation, claiming nothing, deserving no privileges, far less any preferential treatment, not even citizenship rights. So this is the thinking behind RSS. Now, RSS has gradually captured all the sinews of power in India, and this is manifested now in the form of AGP, the political arm of RSS, which is now controlling India under Prime Minister Modi. Now, this is a very dangerous development because it has resulted in a continuous stream of communal rights in India, destruction of Babri Mosque, murder of over 2,000 people in the Gujarat riots under the watch of Modi, and now more recently, the Delhi riots. And this is a policy or thinking which is manifesting itself in Citizenship Amendment Act, National Registration of Citizenship, and these are all expressions of the same Hindutva ideology. And what's more, of course, Muslims are the main targets, and also because they form about 14% of India's population. But even Christians and Sikhs and the lower class Hindus, the Dalits, they are not immune. We have many examples of even Christian priests being lynched, or the churches being stormed, and the Sikhs are always up in arms, as you see. So the veneer of Indian secularism, pluralism, democracy is being torn. I would agree that the national fabric of India is under a big challenge, because it is by all means, the minorities are being pushed against the wall through policies like Ghar Wapsi, Love Jihad, Gaur Raksha. So there's no space being left for the minorities to live and prosper. And the same philosophy is evident in Kashmir, as is evident from 5th August 2019 actions of repeal of Article 360 and 35A, and now followed by these reorganization acts, which is trying to change the demography of India, of occupied Kashmir. And what's more, which is of more concern to Pakistan, is that it has also encouraged India to adopt more hawkish, more aggressive attitude towards Pakistan, of which grave manifestation is this frequent violations of line of control and threats of surgical strikes. So I think this is a very serious development, and Pakistan has to be alive to this gravity of the situation. It's another matter whether it will, the Hindu India, you know, remains in this present virulent form, or in India, you know, crumbles in whatever form. One thing is sure, that it is not the same old India. And it may be a fractured India, maybe a weakened India, but I think in either case, it is a dangerous India for Pakistan. And we, of course, as Ambassador Aziz Khan has stated, that we should adopt all means to prepare to meet these eventuality, diplomatic, on the defense side, and we should be all prepared to meet either situation, because if India remains as Hinduized as now, controlled by RSS ideology, it is dangerous for Pakistan. If it disintegrates or crumbles, it is again a danger for Pakistan. So in either situation, which it looks will last for quite some time, Pakistan has to be on its guards. Thank you.
At the end, let me extend our gratitude to our worthy panelists for having spared very precious time, and we are grateful for making us more educated on the subject matter. And ladies and gentlemen, please keep visiting our website for more reports, event, press conferences, post-event reports, and keep visiting our website www.issi.org.pk, and Allah Hafiz to everyone.